Take 4,332. I've always wanted to do that. My name's Chris O'Brien. Welcome to the segment. Very different segment this week. The guest is yours truly, and I apologise for that. I have zero professional experience in broadcast or film, and I believe I have a face like a smashed crab. So anyway, God bless you. Hey, we've sincerely got to say thank you to all the people that joined us for this series. We got through 13 shows, amazing shows, and the response not only here locally, but nationally has been amazing. I got a text at 4 o'clock this morning from someone in Germany that has been watching the show. So never in our wildest dreams did we think we'd start getting the audience that we have. So thank you. Keep liking and sharing. My kids have taught me how to build an internet business. I knew nothing before this. So keep liking and sharing and pushing it out there. But thank you. We've tried our best to support our local community, promote our local CEOs, and really put in the spotlight some of the leaders that are showing the way how to get through this pandemic. And we've had some great times. So what I thought today would step back through the series and go through some of the incredible moments that we had that were fun. I learned a lot personally, and it was amazing. Great humbling experience to be here with some of these great people. First cab off the rank was Mr. Darren Lynch. Good mate, we'd had a few beers, and he was here to talk about not only his business experience, but his business, Bella. Now, actually, Monday night at the NT Hospitality Awards, Darren picked up the #1 gold plate for, I believe, the best new business in the Northern Territory. So without any further ado, here's a couple of words from the master himself, Mr. Darren Lynch.
It's a hard slog, business. Doesn't matter which industry you're in. Ours, I guess, hospitality is a bit of a nice lifestyle type business, but it's hard work. There's just like every other business. There's work to do every single day on a number of areas, and I guess my thoughts is I really enjoy giving people great experiences, and if that's the reason we get up and we build it, I feel that if we can create some great spaces for people to enjoy, that the profit will come after that. So I'm really conscious of customer experiences and ensuring we keep setting the bar higher to give people better experiences.
Darren is such a formidable businessman here in the Northern Territory, and we're very lucky to have him. He since has started a jet ski business, he tells me. We look forward to having him back, but I know boys and their toys, and I don't think it sounds like a business. It sounds like the boys having a little bit too fun. I want an invite on those jet skis, Darren. Look forward to hearing about it. Next was Mr. Tony Burns. God help us all. This guy is bright as a button. Whatever he has in his coffee of a morning, I want double of it. But what Tony has done for HPA was absolutely outstanding, and the business divisions and how he has built them into these commercial, sustainable entities within a not-for-profit is actually breathtaking. The challenges that he has got, he still has to run a business over there, incredible. Again, it was a great time with Tony. He talked about his days as a tennis pro and also his career with Singing Idol. We won't talk about his career with Singing Idol, but here were a couple of moments that I really enjoyed talking to Tony. Good man.
Well, when I took over, the company was called HPA Disability Services, so very focused on disability. So we were put in a box, and we're a charity, a registered not-for-profit charity. When I took over, 2 weeks into it, I wrote on a napkin, helping people achieve. I thought to myself, if I'm going to be the CEO of this organisation, I want to flip it. I want to think differently. And it had to come from the brand, because if you don't believe in your brand, you're not going to get other people to believe in you as well. So that was really a key moment for us. And then to see that unfold the way it has and really inspire about achievement and not disabilities, it's been a very important part of who we are and where we're going.
Tony Burns will never be the same, but we had fun, my friend. You're an inspiration in this community. Next was Sammy Perry. Now, Sammy Perry was an incredible florist, young lady, trained in New York, in the events industry, Melbourne, moved up to Darwin and got into the position, or secured the position, of the general manager at a business here in Darwin called Fusion. Great story. I'm probably her biggest fan. I really am. She's a single mum, 2 kids. COVID absolutely blew her world apart, and she managed 3 jobs somehow, had the most incredible attitude. I would often see her on forklifts, leading and humbly leading 30 very skilled chippies around. How she did it, I was in awe of. She kept it cool. A great interview. You should watch it. She's very in touch with mental health, and she had a real passion for training her team. Her team adored it and loved it. A real skill that you don't see a lot in leadership. So, and then we talked about how, as a part-time job, and Mum, she went out and started painting some of these amazing murals. Now, that was a word to get at, murals, if you remember the show, but you should go and check it out. Here's a couple of things that Sammy had to say.
It's very important to me that my team know that I have their back and that I'm qualified, or know their role as well, so I can always back them up. If the ops manager needs to leave for an emergency, I can then take over the exhibition for them. So we're a small team, there's 6 of us, then it grows to like 30 in the dry, but we all needed to know each other's roles, so we had that sort of family unit, knowing how to drive trucks and forklifts, and it's not a gender specific business whatsoever. So just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you can't get your MR license or whatever, or be a forklift driver. They're actually a bit better, so I shouldn't say that, but girls on forklifts are a bit...
You're on your own. You're on your own.
They take their time. They're a little bit more cautious about things. So that was a direct dig at Sam.
That was good. That was good. That was good. If you haven't seen that interview with Sammy, it's fantastic. You should go back and check it out. Really, really good. And I believe she's moved to a new business, back into florist full time. I think it's called Magnolias. Whatever you do, Sammy, you'll be hugely successful, and the Northern Territory is blessed to have you here, mate. Don't go anywhere. After Sammy on the segment, we had the amazing Amanda Pernicelli. Wow, what a gun this girl is. I tell you, what a giant, so experienced, articulate, everything she said, it was like just beautiful. And here I am fumbling through my words. I felt like an absolute, she was the giant and I shouldn't be doing those sort of things on. She was amazing, absolutely. And what we learnt from Amanda was the impact of social media and how all businesses need to go online. And if anyone had a few words of wisdom to offer in this area, it was Amanda. Great interview.
There is 16 million Australians actively using Facebook daily. We've also got 9 million using Instagram. So definitely isn't a question of are they online. The audience is online. It's just how you, I guess, attack that. So I would definitely say to start out, to really be put yourself in the forefront of your business. People a lot of the time forget about the social aspect of social media. So they want to hear how the business started, how long you've been doing what you've been doing, a little bit of a story about that, the background, and certainly being able to engage with new customers is so important.
That interview was amazing because she told us how she ended up on international news with her wedding being cancelled. Most of Darwin knows that her wedding was cancelled down at Uluru. National news got a hold of it and then it went international. So it's a good story, and I think it was quite encouraging for a lot of businesses to hear how we've all got to get online. So it was really some words of wisdom in that one. After Amanda was the mighty Peter McFarlane, the green machine himself, local boy, St Mary's, 130-metre torpedo punt on one leg, blindfold. There is nothing Mr Peter McFarlane couldn't do for St Mary's. It's a great interview. He talks about his brand new business. I think it's called PMAC Constructions, I think. Forgive me if I got it wrong. Great story on how Peter was the apprentice in this business, and he was working for a gentleman for, I think it's something like a whole bunch of years. A very, very skilled operator in the building industry. Now Pete's the boss, and the previous owner now works with Pete. It's a great story, great words of wisdom, really believes in mentoring. Here's a few words from Peter McFarlane.
Doesn't matter what the situation is, I always try and find a positive. And just Ed Milet, one of my mentors, one of his sayings that I love is that everything happens for us, not to us. So when you don't play the victim in any situation, when something happens to you, good, bad, or otherwise, say, right, why has this happened for me? What can I take out of it? What's the positive? What can I learn from it? How can I improve? With the COVID situation, right, a lot of people have been shut down. So what is this going to teach me for the next time a crisis comes up? You know, roughly every 10 years, there was the GFC, now there's this, there was the terrorist bombings in America. There's always something that's going to come up and try and derail us, I suppose. So for me personally, I'm trying to work out, right, what can I learn from this crisis that I can then improve on and do better next time? And a lot of people might have to pivot their business or come up with a contingency plan, which I never even knew what a contingency plan was. But my mentor, Kerwin, has been great over this whole time and has told us that you need to have a contingency plan for if something like this ever happens to you and your business. You know, what are you going to do? So, yeah, I'm just trying to take the positives and the lessons out of it.
Pete, I do have one complaint. I know you're actually, I think you're over there in high places at St Mary's still, mate. 1986, I did 3 games under 18s for St Mary's, mate. I'm not seeing my photo up on the wall. I see the other teammates, but I'm missing. Mate, I'm wondering if we could Photoshop me in there. No issues, but it'd be good to see me up there for those 3 games, brother. I wish you all the very, very best. Who came next? Mr. Quinton Kilian. Now, this was a great interview. This was so good. When we start the show is that we normally talk to a person sort of in 30 seconds what they've done and a little bit about their resume, and then we sort of get into the show. Well, Quinton, Lord, he is such a skilled person, has got such a resume like you wouldn't believe. So we kind of didn't brief him that well. And so we got into it and said, hey, welcome to the segment. And this is Mr. Quinton Kilian. Tell us a little bit about what you've done. So away went Quinton. And 4 minutes, 22 seconds, he was only halfway through his resume. And the clapper came down and we went, and that's a wrap, and thank you for joining the show. Well, we laughed and laughed and laughed. We didn't even get through his resume. He's a skilled gentleman, and one of the topics that he talked about was the issue that landlords are facing here in the Northern Territory with the new legislation coming in, that tenants can really have the right to bring any pet that they want into the place they're renting. So we were joking about that means someone can bring a box of pigeons in, raise them in the lounge room, and the landlord has no rights. So you should check it out. He actually had some really good issues to talk about, and he also talked about the property market and the rises and falls. So there's a bit of wisdom in there, worth checking out.
And in actual fact, the REINT was responsible for mounting a petition that got 8,500 signatures, not just from the NT, but from around the world, from investors that were annoyed with it. You're quite right. The legislation that they've brought in is called the pet legislation. It's actually amendments to the Residential Tenancies Act. But we refer to it as the removal of landlords' rights, because essentially what it does is it flips the onus from the landlord having the decision about a pet to the landlord having to defend a decision not to have a pet, where the tenant gets to make that decision. I want a llama in the living room. Landlord says no. The landlord then has to take it to the tribunal and make an argument, and the tribunal can actually decide whether or not the landlord has to live with the tenant having a llama in the living room, which is a nonsense, because why, as an investor, why would you choose to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into a brand new property and potentially have tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage done to, say, polished wooden floors, when in the past you could have said no, now you have to be reliant on somebody else saying no.
Thank you, Mr. REINT. So if you're into real estate in the Northern Territory, it's definitely worth a watch. He had some great things to say. After Quinton on the segment, we had Mr. Tony Innis. Now, he is called the accidental publican because he went from being a farmer to accidentally buying a pub, a very famous pub. The Noonamar. Now, the Noonamar has a long, long history here in the Northern Territory and is almost an icon. Tony came in and talked to us and shared some great words of wisdom about running a business, a remote business, and the challenges about putting up events these days. Very, very different. And the red tape and the bureaucracy that he's got to travel through every time he wants to put on an event. It's very, very good. If you're actually young and you're wanting to get into hospitality, this is a guy you should listen to. He talked about how to have a crack and how owners of venues can pick out straight away someone almost instantly that actually wants a job. So it's definitely worth a watch. Here's a little bit from Mr. Tony.
Like I said, we had that family farm to start with, but it was never quite big enough. So we all went off and did bits and pieces, you know. So, and I think that's one of the hard things with kids today. They got to realise, like, where we lived, there was plenty of opportunity to do other work, you know, almond knocking, olive knocking, you know, fruit picking, all sorts of things. There was always casual, you know, we used to cart hay, bought our first truck doing that sort of thing, and then that's how we got into the hay contracting business, and then bought machinery. So you just, you you got to diversify yourself a bit when you're younger, I think, and then ultimately you aim to work for yourself.
I would actually love to see Tony as the chief minister one day. I just imagine it. He'd take things out the back of the pub and sort them out and just deal with them straight away. So, great man. I wish you all the very best, Tony, out at the pub with your staff, mate. Now, after Tony, we had a guy called David Warrener. Now, David Warrener is extremely skilled, particularly in ag, farming, cattle. Has run the biggest stations up here in the Northern Territory for many, many years. And he's got a business called Agricon. He was very centre in that whole cattle industry when it shut down. Some great words of wisdom, old school of dealing with problems. And I really enjoyed it. Authentic, no bullshit. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but it was so refreshing to have such a gentleman on the show. One of the funny things that you don't see is his business is called DW, Agricon, after David Warrener, that's his name. Mate, because I had WD-40 in my mind, you think I could get it wrong? And I think we got up to take 47, I kept saying DW. Wow, we laughed and laughed and laughed. And I reckon he's a guy that should be president of the Northern Territory one day. Good guy. Here's a couple of cool things that David said.
Well, if you only want to stay afloat, you don't have to do much.
Really?
Well, that means you're just breaking square.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to have a good investment, you've got to be very dynamic in what you do and productive and proactive and really you're talking turnover. You know, there's quite a few businesses that probably only turn over 20 or 22% of their inventory a year. We call it herd churn. You know, how much of your herd do you sell? I think you should strive to sell about 30% in Northern Australia in a typical breeder model. You know, down south you get higher because you sell your cattle as weaners and, you know, so you run more cows and therefore you sell a higher number. But up here, you aim for 30%.
And do many people get that 30%?
Oh, yeah, the good operators can,
Okay.
Good operators can, but rarely.
After David was a great young man called Mr. Glenn Watt, Barefoot Fishing Safaris. Now, unbelievably, Glenn used to work for David, but these unique connections here in the Northern Territory, how we all know each other, was an amazing story. Now, Glenn has an amazing business in fishing, and yourself being the bit of an angler myself, really enjoyed this. I bought some of my lures in and he showed me which would work. He actually didn't give away too many hints. I was a little bit, a bit disappointed with that, Glenn. I thought you could have given me a few more personal pointers. But what a great man, young family out there, really championing the Northern Territory. I mean, this guy, should be up there as a great advocate as a poster boy. I'm not sure how your physique is, mate, but what a poster boy for an advocate for the Northern Territory. Here's a couple of cool things that Glenn had to say.
I think we're only at the tip of the technology sort of wedge. I think things are in the next few years going to keep going. Some of the stuff that's coming out these days is extraordinary. But being able to see the fish, number one, is it's only one piece of the puzzle, as we know. Doesn't mean you can make them eat. But yeah, I'd focus on other things before the technology side of things first. Which is your tides and your wind and your water clarity bait and that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, I've got the very best technology I can get, mainly because it helps me provide the best service to clients. I also just like playing with it, but I'm really data driven too. So I like to be able to see the fish, go back and try and figure them out and catch them. And if they go off the bite, move, find them again and do it again. It provides a better experience for clients, and I think if you use it in the right way, can vastly increase your catch rate.
So if you're looking for a great fishing charter, great guide, and really passionate about fishing, you've got to give Glenn a call, Barefoot Fishing Safaris. I've got to give him a shout out. Great guy, great business, and you've got to take me fishing, Glenn. There you go. Hey, after Glenn was Mr. Kim Menzies. Now, Kim Menzies is a great story. Came from Adelaide, moved up here, worked for Catholic Education for a long time, and then was appointed into the general manager's role over at Channel 7, which I think now is 7 Darwin. And he talked about how it's critical to get your marketing and your advertising right, even in a small town. And that's what their business has developed into, not just taking your money for advertising, but really helping you shape and form your marketing campaign. Here's a bit about what Kim had to say.
First mistake is not even looking at the marketing sphere. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that may be just plodding along, and because of being short-staffed, because of not having the ability to have somebody to actually work with them, don't actually go to that level. So I think reaching out is the most important thing I see, and we in media don't want to be seen as people who's just taking your money. We're here for not a short-term gain, because if you go short-term gain, it's going to be long-term pain. We need to be working with businesses. That the common fault is to not have clarity around where they're going as a business. Therefore, if they haven't got clarity around that, their marketing is going to be very much hit and miss. That's where we come in and talking to people about the clarity about their message. It's super important.
Behind the scenes, the biggest challenge we had was the reflection of Kim's bald head, much like mine. But this is style, not bald. But good interview, and if you're in business and you're looking for marketing, Kim is a lot of experience in this area. Give him a buzz and make sure you get him to buy the coffee. Next was, this was a cracker, Corinda Gill from Abode New Homes. Now, good mate Justin, married to Corinda. They're business partners, husband and wife, but we didn't want Justin because Justin's nowhere near as good looking than his wife. His wife much better looking. So sorry, Justin, like myself, face like a smashed crab, not a chance. But Corinda won Business Woman of the Year, and Abode New Homes also won Business of the Year. So a great territory business, a lot of accolades. And I tell you what, you need to get every teenager to watch this show. I've already got my kids next week to make an appointment to go and see Corinda and Justin and their team. They had some incredible, really smashed my paradigm about building a new home. I've always thought that is the most expensive option, but they smashed that. And it's definitely, if I can encourage you to watch one, you should watch this one. It's a great one. Here's a few things that Corinda had to say.
My advice is, again, make a plan. So younger generation, I think they fail to plan. They tend to be a little bit ad hoc and go, oh, I'm going off on a holiday, I'm going to buy a car. And it's all spur of the moment and doing it now. But if you have a little bit of a plan in place, I think the most important thing is to get a property first, save your deposit, because once you get a car loan or take a loan out for a holiday, you're then unable to get that home until that loan is paid out, because your serviceability is reduced. Whereas if you get the home or the asset, you want to go overseas, rent the home out, it's still part of your property investment portfolio. It'll help you grow, but a lot of young people do it the wrong way around. You need house, then other things.
So that was an absolute cracker of an interview, and we got a lot of response here on the show thanking us for Corinda's interview. It was great. So next we had Dr. Professor Graham Webb. Now, this was really exciting for me because he's a great mate, and probably more, he's been a mentor. And many years ago, I think it was 2006, I ran into Dr. Graham at Crocodilus Park, and he really encouraged Liz and I, that really didn't have a business at that point, to move back north. I had grown up on the Tiwi Islands. My parents were missionary teachers over there from 76 onwards. And I hadn't been back in the territory for many, many years, even though I went to school up here. And I sort of had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about Darwin, but Graham was really instrumental in getting Liz and myself to come up here and really have a crack at starting a business. And so over the years, I really have listened to Graham, and his sense of truth is compelling. It belts you between the eyes. You may not like it, but it's the best thing for you. And the age that we live in, we sugarcoat everything. We don't like the truth. We run around and say everything is awesome and it's great when our worlds are falling on and we're on the brink of collapse. Well, that's not Graham. And this was a really special interview for us, for Liz and I. But it is also the interview that has got the most amount of hits in anything that we have ever done. And on an international level, I get emails all the time and correspondence. I had someone from Florida recently. They saw Graham's interview and they said, how can we support you get that message out internationally? And Graham is known internationally 1,000 times more than he's even recognised here in Darwin. And he is recognised. But here's a couple of really, really things that I thought were brilliant coming from Dr. Graham Webb.
Tourism is something we need to promote. People don't come here because there's an air-conditioned bus or an air-conditioned room or they've got a restaurant or something. If they're feed-ons on tourism, they come to see things, to experience things. And because tourism's never isolated in any of these figures and looked at, it's always combined in odd ways so you can't work out what's going on. The real state of tourism is seriously in need of a bit of enthusiasm and a bit of innovation and a bit of help to build it up, because we are a great place. Most people in Australia want to come here at some time. Tourism from interstate is our biggest potential source. It has been historically. We've just got to make it easy for people to get here and take all the focus on the one thing, focus on the one thing.
Mate, I would love to see Dr. Graham Webb in politics. I don't think they'd ever let him in, or there'd be no one left, because his sense of truth, as I said, is just right between the eyes. But he's a great mentor to us here at Dream Media. So thank you, Uncle Graham. And last but not least in the series was Miss Darlene Chin. Now, Darlene, long-time family. I think her great-great-grandfather worked here in the Northern Territory, and family, so that all these years, over 100 years, I think that the Chin family has been in Darwin, and Darlene currently has a whole bunch of businesses. One of them more notable is Attitude for Men right here in Darwin. And she said to me, this is a true story, when I called her up and I said, Darlene, would you consider being on the segment? She said, I'd love to, but I've got to get you out of your fishing shirt. And I've got to dress you. So thank you for the jacket, Darlene, and the shirt. You've changed me. I do a bit partial to my fishing shirt. And yes, as I've got older, fashion has not been high on the priority, but you nailed me between the eyes, and I thank you for it. Here's a couple of cool things that Darlene said.
It can take a really long time to establish yourself, gain the trust of your market, really get to know the whole thing. And it's always evolving, fashion's always changing, and you've got to stay with it. You have to educate yourself a lot, constantly. And I mean, you see online, big behemoth online businesses, they don't make a profit for years and years. They're just trying to crush people along the way. You have to work really hard. You have to be prepared to be there every day. I mean, retail fashion is a 7-day-a-week thing.
Darlene, amazing. Thank you for coming on the show. If you haven't been into Darlene's shop, you need to go in there. Amazing shop. She's got a bar, a cappuccino bar. She'll look after you, make you coffee, free beer, the whole lot. Sorry, I had to drop that in, Darlene. But I got to say, you were right. And you nailed me. This 50-year-old young gentleman, was not putting any effort into looking good. He'd gotten himself in a bit of a rut. So I did go out to your shop and buy some clothes. So thank you. You're amazing. It would be remiss of me not to finish this show with showing you some behind-the-scenes shots of our crew. I want to thank Ryan Tregoning for helping me start this, Lucy, Tommy, Mahi, Krupa for building the website, Sue for the art. There's been a whole host of people and all the technical guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been an amazing journey and I've had a blast, and it's been great having all these incredible people on the show. So where to from here? Well, we're excited to announce that we are going to produce another 13 shows. Very excited. We haven't asked for a dime, but I am going to hit you up and ask you for this. We need your support to share, like, and make comments. We want your comments to keep us on the straight and narrow, because we do genuinely want to promote and champion local business. We need to promote guys out there in the trenches that are doing it, because we need leadership. We need strong leadership. We're about to go into election this week, and by God, we need leaders. We need to choose carefully. We need soldiers that are going to go over the hill and say, charge, and they've got experience. Quite often, we're in situations where we've got leaders on hills and they've got zero experience. One thing I've learned from business and CEOs and leaders in this town, they've inspired me, they've mentored me, and they've helped me. And that's what we want to champion. We want to get those guys out in the community that have been there, done that, and have got the credentials to come in here and show us the way and point us the way forward. So we're very excited about the next 13 shows. We are going to desperately try to make them bigger, brighter, and bolder, and we're going to have a ball doing it. So thank you for your support. Thank you for commitment. And as they say, and I'm learning the language, like, share, and make comments. We love you guys. Thank you.